This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/Andrew and enter promo code Andrew at checkout.
What the tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew here, and of course I'm joined by Mr. On Time, Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Sorry. It's been kind of a busy day.
It has. And you know what? I delayed the show by like 10 minutes too. How you doing?
Getting there.
Busy today, huh?
Yeah.
Well, is it busy because of just in general work stuff, or is it busy because it's almost that time?
Sure. It's a bunch of stuff.
It's a bunch.
There's a lot going on.
It is, it's a very busy time for you, as we said. Not only do you do this podcast, and you do another podcast, and you are writing a book. You have to write multiple books, right? Because you have to write for the phone and for desktop. Or is it all going to be in one?
I'm gonna cover desktop and tablet first, and we'll see what happens with phone. I'm trying to figure that one out.
Okay. And Windows 10 is coming out, so you are obviously bombarded with that. And you run a very successful blog called Thurrott.com. So you are the man of you know what? You are the new king of all media. You do a radio show. You do you are the new Howard Stern, Paul. How does that feel? You're an author.
I wish I was
you're a
Howard
blogger.
Stern.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't wish they were Howard? You are really, really busy. So
I'm busy. I just don't have the millions.
I have, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
You're as busy as a millionaire, but
it would make it a little easier to handle the day, if I knew it didn't matter financially.
Yeah. I guess we should begin with the whole insider debacle on who's getting the upgrade and who's not. But before we do that, because I know this is going to take a while to explain to us, laymen that do not understand what's happening. So let's take a minute. Let's talk about our sponsor, and that's Casper. What is Casper? Yes, Casper is an amazing mattress company located here in New York City. If you have not heard of Casper, let me tell you how you get your mattress. You don't have a big delivery truck show up with 10 guys that try to shove this thing to your bedroom, and guess what? The stairs are a little too small, so they have to bend it, they have to push it, they got to break down walls to get this thing up. No, none of those issues happen. Casper comes in a box. It's air sealed, airtight. The thing comes in, it's about this high, the box. Bring it up, super lightweight. You set it up, you open up the bag, and it deflates. And it's a latex and memory foam mattress. And let me tell you, this is my main mattress now. I had a Kingsdown mattress for about 4 years. It was, I think we spent like $2,000 on this thing. I mean, $2,000 on the lowest end because I have a bad back. Because I thought this would help it, Oh, yeah, get a very expensive mattress. Get some sales guy to tell me, you lay on the bed and they do that firm test. Have you ever done that, Paul? When you lay and they're like, oh, no, you're like a 2, you're like a 3, and then they pick a mattress for you.
Yep.
You know what? Total bogusness. I call shenanigans on that thing because this thing ruined my back even more. I slept on this thing for 4 years, and then we had Casper as an advertiser, and they offered to send me one. And I said, listen, if I don't like it, I'm going to be totally honest, and I'm not going to say that I absolutely love the thing. And they go, no problem. You don't have to lie for us. Just, tell us your actual experience. Well, it was amazing. The mattress is great. I sleep on it every day, and you can too. And let me tell you, they offer a 100-night sleep guarantee, so you can sleep on this thing for 100 nights. And if you hate it, total money back. They don't, they're not going to charge you for it. You just put it back in the box, or they come pick it up, and that's it. You're all set. If you go to casper.com/Andrew, or if you put in promo code Andrew, you get $50 off your purchase. Mattresses start at around $500 for a twin, $950 for a king. And it's a $50 savings. So, I mean, just try it out. If you're looking for a new mattress, I really, really suggest you try it out because it's totally, totally comfortable. I have no complaints about it at all, and it's actually amazing that I'm not complaining about something. Casper.com/Andrew. or put in promo code Andrew at checkout. What's happening there, Paul?
I just sorry.
What happened?
Nothing. I'm good. I'm sorry. I was just thinking well, it's not possible. But we should try to do like a complaint-free show where we just talk about stuff that we're really happy about.
Like mattresses.
With anything.
With anything.
I mean,
you know what? We should do that. We should do a totally positive show. Casper.com/Andrew. Put in promo code Andrew at checkout and get $50 off. I want to thank Casper for supporting GFK Network and, of course, supporting What the Tuck. So, Paul, let's talk about the insider debacle. I got a bunch of calls from people, and I'm going into this because I'm still a little confused about this. So I'm going to ask you everything that was asked to me. Number one, I thought Windows 10 was free for everybody that has Windows 7 and up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's fair. Here, let me cut through some of the confusion. I'll just state a couple of things that people have seemed confused about for some reason. My video, oh, there it is. It just went purple there. First of all, if you have a genuine, meaning you supported legitimate copy of Windows 7 with Service Pack 1 or Windows 8.1, that PC can get Windows 10 for free. The equivalent version.
Okay.
There has been some confusion around the notion that Windows Insiders will also be getting Windows 10 for free. Because it's like, well, what does that mean? Right?
But wouldn't they be getting it because Windows Insiders are using Windows 10 already?
Yes. So when Microsoft first announced that Windows Insiders would get Windows 10 for free, I replied, just like everyone else on Earth, that there is nothing special about that, right? Although that's a slight exaggeration because there's one thing I can think of off the top of my head that's a little different than the way the rest of the world will get it. And there might be a couple of other small things, but none of them relate to you have pirated Windows and now you're getting it for free.
Now you get okay.
So for example, you have a PC and most people who are testing Windows 10 today are using it on a PC that had Windows 7 or newer on it anyway. But it doesn't matter. Let's just say you have some PC. It doesn't really matter. The Windows 10 Insider Preview builds that we've been getting so far have been the Pro version of Windows 10, which is the more expensive of the retail versions. So maybe you had a Windows 7 Home Basic PC, or maybe you had I'm just making stuff up now, I don't know, like a Windows 8.1 Core PC or whatever. I assume because you've been using Windows 10 Pro all along, and because Microsoft will in fact support an in-place upgrade from a pre-release version of the product to the release version of the product, that you will in fact get the Pro version. And that might be the little perk that you get.
And this is for insiders.
Yeah, and I'm just extrapolating this based on known information.
Okay.
So because that's the way things work. In other words, you had a PC. It was a genuine version of Windows, a supported version of Windows, Windows 7 or newer. Could be Windows 8.0, could be 8.1, could be 7 with Service Pack 1. Doesn't matter. I assume that you will in fact be able to continue forward with Pro, even though as a member of the civilian population or whatever, if you had went out on July 29th or later and upgraded that computer to Windows 10, you would have gotten whatever version matched up with yours. So you might have gotten the Windows 10 Home version instead of Pro.
Okay. And
so there's a little perk that I perceive to be the case. Okay, so you have questions. Go on.
Okay. Sorry. So if I'm an insider, I will get Pro. No matter what version of Windows I had prior.
That's I'm assuming here, right?
Okay. That's what you're assuming.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. So and this is a full copy of Windows.
Yep.
Okay. Not an upgrade, a full.
Well, no, it's both, right? So in other words, how does that work, right? They haven't spelled it out 100%, but it's very clear how it's going to work. You will need to sign in with a Microsoft account. That doesn't mean you have to sign in with a Microsoft account as you're logging in Windows 10. But it does mean you need to, somewhere in Windows 10, in one of the apps, like the Store app or whatever, connect your login to the Microsoft account that you use to register as a Windows Insider. At that point, and I think this actually starts with the next build that we get as soon as this week, the PC on which you have done this install will be registered up in, actually it's in the store. Some people are saying OneDrive, but it's really in the Microsoft's, the Windows store, the online store. There is it's a product key, really. I don't know that you'll ever see it, but there is a database entry. I'm not really sure what it is. This is what I mean. It's a little vague, but your Microsoft account and the product or some hardware ID related to your computer are registered together. This is a valid PC on which Windows 7 will activate. So in the future,
Windows 10 or 7?
Windows 10. What did
Windows
I say?
10.
7.
7,
Sorry.
yeah, okay.
I meant Windows 10.
Okay.
So today you might upgrade that thing right to the RTM version of Windows 10 and you go on with your life. But maybe it's 2 months down the road, 2 years down the road. It doesn't matter. At some point you say, I want to clean install this thing. I want to wipe it out and just start from scratch.
This is when you've upgraded. We're talking about an upgrade here.
Afterwards. In other words, this is sometime in the future.
So you had Windows 7, you went through the upgrade process, you upgraded, and you're like, okay, now it's time for me to format this thing as running like crap.
Well, you went through the beta. You installed pre-release versions of Windows 10 apparently.
Okay, we're still talking about insiders.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, this applies to anybody. I mean, but I'm just saying as of, like this week, if you're an insider, this will start. As of July 29th, this will apply to anybody.
Yeah.
If you upgrade to Windows 10, starting, I think, with the next build, and certainly with the RTM version of Windows 10, there will be a correlation made up in Windows Store with your Microsoft account and that computer. So that in the future, if you choose to do a clean install, when activation, you don't have to put in the code during setup. You can skip over that. And Windows will automatically activate when you get online because it's going to check your Microsoft account against what it has in the Windows Store. And if that hardware ID of that computer is in there, you're good to go, and it will work.
And so no more. Okay, so it knows.
Right.
Okay, so let's say you can't connect to the internet.
You can't. Then what are we talking about? It's Windows 10. It's 2015. Okay. You have X number of days to run Windows 10. It's an evaluation version. So if you don't activate it, you can still use it. The store won't work. There's some stuff that won't work, but you can keep going. At some point, you're gonna have to activate it. I mean, so you have to be online to activate it. I mean, I guess you could call it in. I don't know. But
okay, so here's my other question.
Yeah.
Well, 2 scenarios now. Okay.
Okay.
So the insider thing that we're talking about is going to be the same as. I think where the confusion lies is the word full and upgrade, right? I think that's where a lot of people are getting confused with because people imagine that an upgrade is not a full. An upgrade, you need a pre-existing version of that of Windows 7 somewhere installed to do it. So if let's say I ran the upgrade on my Lenovo, I'm not an insider. I just went through the process and Windows 10 came, I updated it. And then now it's time for me, I get a brand new hard drive.
Yep.
And I pop this thing in. How do I install Windows? Do I just have to download it on an ISO or something, put it in, and when I go to install, it'll know my hardware and it'll say, well, yeah, this guy has Windows, so we'll upgrade.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so an upgrade is still full. There's no difference.
You don't have to worry about this stuff.
Okay, you don't have to worry about that. I think that's where a lot of
that's
people are
gonna
really,
work.
Yeah,
that's one area. Unfortunately, the weird thing about this to me is the bigger area of confusion, which impacts a far smaller number of people than what you were just talking about. So it's amazing to me how much confusion there is over this. Involves, 2 things. It's non-genuine versions of Windows, which we might charitably describe as pirated versions of Windows. Right?
So that's the discussion where if I have a pirated version of Windows 7 or whatever, and I join the Insider program, I now get a legitimate version of Windows.
You don't. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
Nope. Also, maybe you have a Windows Vista class computer or even an XP computer, a computer that came with Windows XP. You use that to do a clean install of Windows 10 during the Insider program, during the beta. You've been upgrading all along, maybe, who knows, whatever it is. And now the final version comes out. What happens to you, right? What happens to you is that you will upgrade to the final version of Windows 10 just like everyone else, but it will not activate. It will activate as an evaluation version. It will have a timeout. It will expire, and you will have to pay for the upgrade or give it up by that point. That's what's going to happen.
Okay.
That's what should happen, by the way. This shouldn't confuse anybody. And you can see that in the leaked build that I'm currently using of Windows 10, this system is already in place. So if I do because I'm not using a retail key, I'm using the beta key. And it says evaluation copy expires October 1, 2015 at 7:59 p.m. This system's in place. It's just waiting for the insiders to get the first public build that has this stuff in it. So this is already happening.
Okay.
People are like freaked by this.
So what's the confusion though? What is it?
Because Microsoft wrote a post last Friday where they implied by omission, they didn't say that this was going to happen, but by omitting the details, people assumed that it would be possible if you were a pirate today or someone with a Windows Vista or Windows XP computer to install Windows 10 Insider Preview on that computer today, and that you would just seamlessly upgrade right through the the final version of the product, and then you would be made genuine, and you would be able to keep using this thing forever now, or until support ended or whatever. That is not the case.
That is not the case.
Microsoft does a terrible job of communicating what I often think of as something really simple, but maybe more important, something that needs to be communicated clearly. And so they updated the blog posts in a really crappy fashion, by the way. They just silently added some words to make it, actually took away some words as well, to make it more clear. And then on Monday, I'm having a hard time with days, but I guess yesterday, they actually just rewrote the whole thing. And this time they at least included the old version of the post so you could kind of compare and contrast. But they wrote a brand new post, replaced the old one, and said, look, let's just be clear about this. And they kind of they stepped through some of the stuff I just said to you. Some of the stuff I know just from using the product, but they tried to be more clearer about what the intention here is and how they believe it's going to work.
Okay, so here's another question. That hardware ID that's assigned to your account, how is that hardware ID being
generated? We don't. So it's not really clear, but it is almost certainly the same way that it's being generated today. With when Microsoft ties product keys to a computer. So, for example, if you were to buy Windows 8.1 today electronically or in a box, and you bring it home and you install it on a computer and you activate it, as part of that activation process, Microsoft saves a pair of things up in the cloud somewhere. That is the product key that you've registered, ensuring no one else uses it on a different hardware, and then that hardware ID, which is a collection of information about your computer that includes data related to the processor, the motherboard, the hard drive, various peripherals, and so forth. Some of these things are weighted more than others because Microsoft understands you may replace the hard drive with an SSD, you may replace the video card, whatever. Where people run into trouble, well, I should say, with such a system in the future, you can go and you can reinstall Windows on this computer as many times as you want. You could even install it in a dual boot situation twice with the same product ID. Product key, it would work fine. It just has to be that computer. Where you get into trouble is if you try to take that product key and put it on a different computer. That's when those things don't match up.
Or if you upgrade your motherboard and CPU and your video card, and now the only thing you've pretty much changed everything.
Depending on what you change, sometimes nothing happens. It's fine. Sometimes. I talked to it's really kind of a form of alchemy, like how they, how the system works. We really don't know. And for obvious reasons, they're not talking. But one of the things that's become obvious over time is that there is kind of a timeout period on some of the checking. So, for example, you can reuse product keys when things change when hardware configurations change over a wide period of time. They're a little more lenient, it seems, to some changes. But let's pretend that you, for some reason, it's July 29th, and you buy Windows 10, or you get it for free, as a Windows Insider. It doesn't really matter, and you install it, and it generates that kind of combination of codes or whatever. And 1 week later, your motherboard fails, and you have to replace it, and everything else in the PC is the same. You have to reinstall Windows maybe, or you don't even have to reinstall Windows. Maybe you just boot it up. It's a new motherboard, but everything is the same. So the system should still work. But now it says, oh, your product's not activated anymore. You have to try to activate. And it doesn't activate, right? Because it sees it's a new motherboard. It's only been a little period of time. Maybe it appears like you're doing something illegal. In that case, here I have to assume, but there's a system in place for how that works today. Why wouldn't it be the same system? That system is you call Microsoft, you explain what happened, they look at they can see the data of the activation information, and they will just allow that activation, and they'll give you a code that they read to you over the phone, and you type it in, and it changes that key combination. So in the future, when you have to reinstall again, you can do it electronically.
Okay. Here's another question for you. Are you ready for this one, Paul?
Yep.
Let's say I've been a real bad boy and I took my copy of Windows 7. I installed it on every one of the machines in my studio, right?
Yep.
So this has the same version of Windows 7 and this has the same version. So I've done it like to 6 computers.
Okay.
And it worked fine in Windows 7, right? Like there are ways you could go past it. I think everybody, I don't know anybody that has not installed Windows 7 on more than one machine if they bought a copy.
Yeah.
So I have it. I think I have it on like 2 machines, and then I actually have Premium, and I have a Pro version of Windows 7 or 8. Now it's time to do this update, and let's say I have it on 5 or 6 machines are running Windows 7 with the same license key. When I go to
What do you mean the same license?
it's just Windows 7, the same license, the same key, activation key has
You can't
been
use
used
the same, but you can't.
on Windows 7. You
can't.
can.
No, you can't.
I'm looking right now, and I have 3 machines with the same activation.
I mean, there are special exceptions to this: volume license keys you might get from MSDN or TechNet.
So this is the Balmer edition.
Okay, I mean, this is kind of a special case, so I'm not really sure how that works. But assuming it's kind of a multi-key volume license key type situation.
As far as I know, it's supposed to be 1 key per machine. But
it is literally supposed to be 1 key.
Yeah, literally it's supposed to be that. But I can tell you right now, I have it on 2 separate machines because I have 2 production machines that I upgraded, 3 production machines that I upgraded that are running the same activation key. I did not turn off the internet. I just installed them. I think one I installed 1 year, the other one I installed the other one I installed the other when I did the updates.
So Andrew, this is a very special case. So your particular situation, it's impossible to know what's actually going to happen there. But
so
I think if you are running Windows 7 or 8.1 that you got from MSDN or TechNet, which would be a situation like this, I don't know. I mean, this is just a special case. Someone has asked me, I'm running Windows 10 Enterprise. Running Windows 7 or 8.1 Enterprise. How do I get Windows 10 Enterprise? It's not part of this free thing. You're not going to get like an icon in the tray. You have to get it from the organization that gave you Windows.
They gave you Windows, yeah.
They said, well, I got it from MSDN. Well, then that's where you're going to have to get it from.
Yeah.
So I don't know. In your particular case, which applies to just you and no one else listening to this, I would say I don't know what's going to happen. You could look and see if you got the little icon advertising Windows 10. If you didn't on any of them, I would say that there are 2 possibilities. One is that you're going to try to upgrade to Windows 10 on all of them and it will just work. The other one is that you will be able to upgrade to Windows 10 on just one of those machines and the other ones won't work.
Yeah. So that's what I'm curious about.
But that's just such a special case. I don't know.
Do you think it is? Because I know people that install Windows on more than 1 or 2 machines if they have a key.
Okay, but I don't know what that means. That's not a legal, normal way to install Windows. That's not how it works. So I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Because right now I'm looking at is this let me see. Maybe I'm wrong actually. Wait a minute.
I don't know.
I can tell you for a fact I got 3 machines here with it, right? So I think MSDN allows 10 activations according to each in our chat room.
But MSDN is MSDN.
Yeah, MSDN
if you got it from MSDN, you're going to get Windows 10 from MSDN. Yeah. I mean, I guess I would think about it this way. Let's say you joined MSDN for 1 year at great expense. For some reason. I mean, you're a developer, presumably, or, whatever it was. I mean, presumably the reason wasn't I wanted a free version of Windows on every one of my computers or something. People do that. Okay, fine. I mean, do you really think that and then, by the way, they never paid for MSDN again. Should that person get a free version of Windows 10 on every one of those computers? It's not even a legitimate use of the operating system. I mean, my answer would be no. They should not get a free version of Windows 10. Unless they're continuing to pay for MSDN, in which case they will get a key from MSDN and they can just use that. So, it's not like this. It's not like I don't mean you, but one subscribed to MSDN and then got a perpetual lifetime free supply of Windows forever. I mean, it's not really. It's not designed for that purpose.
I'm just curious on why I was able to install it. I wonder if that Balmer edition has like some special thing, you know?
I don't know. I mean, remember there was a Windows 7 family pack.
Which I have that too. Yeah.
I think there were 3 licenses, but remember each
Yeah.
one of them was a separate product key. You didn't get one product key you could use on 3 computers. You got 3 separate product keys. That's how that worked, or 5, or whatever the number was. That's how that works. You know, it's one product key, one computer.
Actually, let's find out.
Okay.
Now I'm obsessing over this. Hold on.
By the way, there were related questions around. I bought a retail copy of Windows 8.1, so I have a genuine copy of Windows 8.1. I upgrade that thing to Windows 10. Well, can I reuse the Windows 8.1 product key? I mean, after all, it's a retail key. It's something you could reapply to a different computer.
Okay, I got way too many versions of I got Windows 7 Home Premium, the family pack. Then I have Windows 7 Pro, which I don't know why I have Windows 7 Pro. I have Windows 7 Ultimate, the Balmer one, and then I have Windows 8 Pro. So I have more than enough licenses, I guess, to make them happy.
Look, look, there are all kinds of screwy things around this deal. So one of the things I would say is most PCs are just going to get this upgrade. It's going to happen, right? There are always going to be weirdisms. There are people who are getting the little flag icon that get Windows 10 now kind of thing, and they're going to get it and they'll be good to go. So there are some people who get that thing and they don't want it and they can't get rid of it because it's actually kind of hard to get rid of. It's weird. There are people who do want it and aren't seeing it, right? If you have like an HP 7 Stream 7 tablet, I think in fact I've been meaning I can't do it right now, but an HP Stream 11 or HP Stream 13 laptop, you haven't seen that little advertisement yet because your device doesn't have enough space, and it's still unclear how they intend to support that. I'd heard micro SD or SD expansion at one time because you need a certain amount of free. I don't know, 8 gigabytes.
So if you put in a micro SD inside of that, the stream, it'll see that as hard drive space.
That was the plan as I understood it, but I haven't heard an update on that, so I don't want to say that that's what's.
So guys, a lot of people are now asking me on Twitter, what the hell's the Balmer edition?
Yep.
It was a free copy that they gave away during Windows. When did they give those away? To who? Was that the home?
It was at the launch, wasn't it?
Was it at the launch, or was it that party that they had? You could do they did some promotion with some company where if you had a Microsoft party, they gave you copies of Windows 7.
Oh. I don't think that was it. Well, maybe it was. I mean, I got the party stuff. I don't remember the Balmer edition being part of that, but
yeah, because I got 3 of them that were sent to me. I don't know why, and they're all in this black case, and it's autographed by Steve Ballmer. It's like a NBA rookie card for Steve Ballmer. It was a Windows 7 parties. Triple Q says.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to. I just redid my HP Stream 11 so I could look at the status of that icon, and I don't believe it appears in this laptop. So whatever, I can't really do that right now, but
yeah. So I mean, it's still, I guess if you're one of the people that has installed Windows 7 on more than one machine, you may encounter some sort of problem when the day comes to upgrade, because if you upgrade on one, it may turn around and say, hey, you've already upgraded this version of Windows. But we are not too clear yet. We don't know. We don't know yet. I guess
fair to say there are many questions. I mean, the big questions to me are going to be the little picky cases, the weird cases, right?
Like this, like what
this.
I just explained.
But I don't think this impacts a lot of people, right? I think the bigger deal is going to be the bigger deal. I think the bigger audience or whatever is just going to get Windows 10, no problem, But there are going to be people who don't see that icon for some reason, that aren't offered the upgrade for some reason. And a lot of this, we're going to have to wait for the 29th to see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see, but it's weird. The questions I get from people, a lot of them are just special cases. Well, what about this? What about this? And it's like, well, I do sort of think that what Microsoft should have done and easily could have done was have some form of an amnesty deal. And it could have been a short-term thing. It could have been like, look, we want to get people off pirated versions of XP or 7.
Here you go. Everybody gets it.
Well, for 30 days.
Yeah.
Join the Insider program, and maybe as part of this, they could be part of that deal. These kind of upgrades could be part of the deal where you have to agree to let us send you updates, because the reason we're getting you off of pirated software is so that your machine is never used as a zombie PC or, used to launch malicious attacks. And one of the ways we can do that is by making sure your PC is always up to date with all of the latest software updates and security updates and everything. But they're not, they're not doing that. And I'm sure there are legal reasons. I don't know, but
Well, I really think that it's time for them to give up this fight against the pirates, where, we're gonna make the authentication a little bit hard. They're gonna pirate regardless. If you're going and downloading an ISO to, a cracked ISO to on the Pirate Bay or whatever pirating software you use, the odds are you're not gonna shell out the money and buy it. There's a very good chance you're not. So you're absolutely right. Give it 30 days.
right.
And just upgrade it that way. And get everybody on the latest version of Windows.
Yeah.
It doesn't benefit Microsoft by having people on Windows Vista or Windows XP, a pirated version of Windows 7. I can't see how they're benefiting from that. Is it
Right.
with their Microsoft ID so that this was another post, and go to Thurrott.com, guys, because you actually explained this really well. In the latest build of Windows 10, you are no longer required to have a Microsoft account, correct?
Well, technically speaking, you were never required to have a Microsoft account. But the big difference between Windows 8 and 8.1 and Windows 10 is that the instances in which you can use all of the apps and the stuff inside the system without having a Microsoft account are much greater than they were previously. So that's been a big and nice change.
Okay. So with this Microsoft account, right? Here's another question for you for upgrading. You had said, or you had alluded, or I can't remember what it was, but if you have, a Microsoft ID and you have a copy of Windows 10, that product ID will be in the cloud somewhere that I could go and access it if I need to? Or
What
that
will
is
be in the cloud?
Your product ID.
I don't know that you're going to be able to access it. I see it. This is a detail that I don't know. Like, in other words, like you can access your BitLocker keys up in OneDrive or something. Will you need to see this information? I don't even know that you'll need to see it. Up in the cloud somewhere is information about a product key for Windows 8.1 and your PC's hardware ID. Do you need to see that? No, because when you activate Windows, it just works. So I'm saying
It's automatically going to activate it because it already knows. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many questions here. So the whole requiring the Microsoft ID, why was this a big deal for a lot of people that they did not want to use a Microsoft ID, a Microsoft account?
Well, some people just like to do things the way they like to do them.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of see the benefit of it. It's like anything else when you tie it to a Microsoft account, or when you tie it to any online account, whatever you're doing. When you tie anything to an online account, you create a system where you have lots of integration. Seamless sign into your OneDrive account, seamless sign into your Xbox Music account if you use that, or Xbox account, seamless sign into Office. It's nice. Setting sync between PCs and devices, really nice to have. But some people may say, I don't care about that stuff. I don't use that stuff. I use Dropbox. I use this. I don't want Microsoft in my life like that. And more to the point, I don't want a single line of failure where if someone takes over my Microsoft account, now they have all this other stuff, And so there are reasons to go, either way. I happen to think that Microsoft did a good job in the Windows 8 timeframe of making a case for this kind of sign-in making a lot of sense. This is what I use. I don't have any qualms about it. I think it's fine, especially when you take security measures like, two-factor authentication, whatever, which I think everyone should do on a Microsoft account. But you have to respect the fact that a lot of people are coming at Windows 10 from Windows 7. Windows 7 doesn't have a Microsoft account sign-in. They do have a way. It's really hard to find, but there's a way you can connect your local account to what is now called a Microsoft account inside the OS. By the way, it's kind of buried in Windows, 8. It came out right front and center. I think you have to meet the expectations of the user. So if you have a Windows 7 install base with several hundred million people, they're going to upgrade to Windows 10. Their account is a local account. And so getting this like kind of spam advertisement, like right in setup where it's like, hey, your life would be a lot better if you could just sign in with a Microsoft account. I think a lot of those people can be like, I don't want to do that. And you can skip that in Windows 8. You can skip it in 8.1. You can skip it in Windows 10, but when you skip it in Windows 10, a lot of stuff still works that did not work in Windows 8 or 8.1. And
Like
I just think
what?
that's smart.
Like, give me an example of what wouldn't work and what would work.
The one I used in the article is the calendar app.
Okay.
So if you try to sign in, if you try to use the mailer calendar app, in other words, you say, well, I want to sign in with my local account, Paul, whatever. And I've given it a password. I'm trying to be secure and all that stuff. Now I want to use mail-in calendar, really basic stuff. But I don't use Microsoft account for that. I use Gmail and I use Google Calendar. So you run one of the apps and it says you got to sign in with a Microsoft account. You're like, I don't have a Microsoft account, or I don't want a Microsoft account. I don't want to use the Microsoft account, whatever. Well, you can't use those apps. Sorry. In Windows 10, you can. And you can sign in with your Google account and it just works. You don't have to have a Microsoft account. Smart. It's if you are using a Microsoft account, nothing has changed. It works just as good as it ever did. But if you don't want to use a Microsoft account, now it just works. That's nice. That's smart.
That's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the latest build, because a lot of people saying, well, this build is actually really good.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. What is this going to be, the one that's going to be close to fun? Because we have a month left. That's it.
Well, I mean, I think this or something close to this will be the next public, Windows Insider build. Based on my experience with it, it has been a lot more stable and reliable than the previous build. There were previous leaked builds that were kind of interesting because they had things in them that we didn't see in the public builds, but they had problems. Like the previous leaked build, pinning things didn't work. You move stuff around in the start menu, they disappear. You install an app, you'd search for it from Start or Katana, and it wouldn't come up. And this thing, all that stuff has been eradicated. There's a lot of nice fit and finish stuff going on here. New application of accent colors to the windows and everything that really makes it look a lot better. And it is that interesting moment in time, which, by the way, does happen with every version of Windows. It's just that in this case, it's happening really close to the launch.
Yeah.
Much, much closer to the launch than it's ever been the case before.
Is that a bad thing? Or is that a good thing?
It's just that I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's interesting, where it just kind of all comes together. And that's really interesting to me. The phone version of Windows 10, Windows 10 Mobile, is not in that same place, although you can have a better experience on Windows 10 Mobile if you upgrade and then wipe it and just do a reset, which a lot of people don't want to do because it's their phone. And then they go back to like a clean version of that new build, and it actually kind of works pretty well. This version, it doesn't really matter. You can upgrade. Actually, you have to the leak build. You have to upgrade anyway. You can't do a clean install. But 8.1 or a previous version of Windows 10, whatever it is, upgrade. It's great. And so this is the first one where I can say honestly, it's great. Like it's working, and I can kind of see it. You can kind of see. This is obviously what they intend. Well, I shouldn't say that. Who knows? The vision for this thing has probably evolved all along, a long time. But I would say this is the level of quality I'm sure that they envisioned for this.
Because when is RTM going to hit?
Yeah, who knows?
Like, it has to be like any day.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but I don't know.
I mean, how close are they going to cut it to the release of Windows 10?
I don't know.
Because
I really don't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how long does it take to inject a new build of the OS onto a machine that HP makes, seal a box, and ship that thing out to stores all over the country? How long does that take? I don't know. They're going to need that amount of time, because there are going to be some number of computers that are available on July 29th, some small number, but I mean, what are you going to put on there? Like a pre-release version, and then the first time you boot up, it like downloads the real version? That'd be horrible.
That's a horrible. Well,
so I don't know.
Windows 7, with Windows 7, when did RTM hit? Do you remember that?
No, I'd have to look this up, but I want to say, yeah. So no, it was months. It was with Windows. I could be wrong, but I believe Windows 8. It was August 1st, and then the product shipped October 26th.
So it was months, like 3 months.
Oh, months, yeah. And it would have been roughly the same for Windows 7.
Huh. So this is not that.
Well, no, and that's the thing. Like, so in other words, I write this article where I said, hey, it's kind of interesting watching this thing all come together. You got to understand, I've been doing this for like 25 years. So I'm not new to at some point late in development, like this new version of Windows actually starts to work. I've seen this before. I've gone through the many versions of Windows where things really sucked for a long time and then they finally got good. What I'm saying is we are less than 40 days away from this thing launching, not RTMing, launching.
Launching.
It's going out in boxes to people who want it. It's going out on PCs that want it that way. There's a delta that has to occur, like you've been talking about, between RTM and general availability or launch. I mean, how much time is left? It's kind of hard to say. We've never been this close to it before.
It's a little scary because normally with RTM, they send it to the companies and they install it and then they discover if there's a bug or not, if there's an issue.
Sure.
And then by gold, some of those things are worked out.
So obviously, I mean, I'm not privy to the exact system, but Microsoft and some of the PC Maker people I've talked to, and I'm going to be talking to some more of them actually this week, about this very topic. Obviously over the many years, they've worked with Microsoft, on every version of Windows, obviously. I think with this version, what we're seeing is that they're working more closely and there's an acceptance that, you can test this like some build because the core stuff and the drivers and everything, all that stuff is going to work. And you know that basically you're going to be able to slip in the final version and it's going to be good to go. That there's we're going to change graphics in an app, or we're going to maybe change the icons in File Explorer, whatever it is. But it's not going to screw up your computers. It's not going to change how drivers work. It's not, that stuff was all sealed a long time ago. So I think there's just an element of trust this time that, they're seeing builds much earlier than we are. They've been working with Microsoft hand in hand for a long, long time. And we'll see. I'm not endorsing it. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, Windows is an old legacy product.
Well, I'm sure it's.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it can handle this kind of development cycle. We'll see.
I mean, it's a little stressful, right? And I'm sure they're pretty stressed too, the developers of, all these build releases. I mean, it seems like this build is pretty good.
It is. Yeah.
Have you discovered anything weird or funky with it yet, or so far so good?
No, it works great.
So when was the last time that you had issues with a build?
Well, the previous one. Actually, I was complaining to something, Mary Jo, or somebody. Before this, I was using the previous leaked build, which is also newer than the most recent public build. And that one had serious problems. That's the one where it was dropping stuff out of the start menu. It couldn't search for anything. And it was really getting bad. And I actually switched back to Windows 8.1. I'm dual booting. So I think I had to boot into 8.1. If you think, actually last week when we did the podcast, I bet I had to be in 8.1 for Skype to work because everything was just going south. And so as recently as a week ago, you know what I mean? So since I've had this, it's been like, oh, here we go. Look at this thing.
Okay, well, this one works.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm hoping this thing works. I'm hoping that, it gets
well,
released.
This is giving me great faith. I mean, I look, everyone has different computers and different configurations and all kinds of things go wrong. There's all the craziness around, who's going to get it and when, and what version, and will it work, and is it genuine, and all that stuff. But, I mean, looking at this thing now, I think they're going to get this one right. This is going to, at least on PCs.
I'm curious what the average user is going to think when they upgrade this thing. Now it's like a whole different look.
Well,
and they went through that with 8, so now it's like, okay, well, what is this? Is there what's the learning curve?
Some of them did. Some of them didn't. I mean, I look at this and I think, for Windows 7 users, it boots into the desktop. There's a start menu, not a start screen. Windows float, all that stuff. It's recognizable. We talked about Windows 95 a few weeks ago. Start button, start menu, taskbar, tray area. There's desktop floating windows. It's all at least semi-familiar. I think Windows 8 was a little too new and different and weird and really wasn't suitable for most desktop-type computers that people freaked out about it. If you are coming from Windows 8, I mean, it kind of continues the journey that they went on with 8.1 and 8.1 Update 1 where they made it more and more suitable for traditional computers. And so the two big well, there are more than two, but I would say the two biggest changes are that start menu. Although if you like it, you can turn on full screen start screen. That's fine. And the ability to run all those modern apps, which are now universal apps, in Windows. And I think both of those are are nice. I think people will like that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited because I already have decided the machines that I'm upgrading first. So I have a Lenovo here, right? It's an AMD A6, so it's a dual-core AMD. I got it in 2009. And I'm running, it came with Windows 8, but I put Windows 7 on it. And this will be the first one to upgrade. But in the meantime, I also want to upgrade the hardware on this thing because it has a, a slow hard drive and it has 4 gigs of RAM. How will my experience be on this computer, Windows 10, if I install it straight off what I have?
4 gigs of RAM hard drive.
4 gigs of RAM and I think what is it, 5200 RPM hard drive.
Yikes. Yeah. I mean, actually, it's probably going to be fine. I mean, what's the processor?
It's an AMD A6.
Oh,
I don't know what that means.
I think people are going to see fairly equivalent performance in the desktop. The hardware requirements have not gone up.
Or better.
Yeah,
right?
or better. Right. Honestly, I mean, one of the things we're kind of past the point where you buy a brand new laptop and it's like an i7 and it has 16 gigs of RAM and some really fast SSD with PCIe, whatever. You open File Explorer, you navigate to a file, you run the application. I mean, these things aren't going to happen twice as fast, right? We've reached the point where these things pretty much work. You'll notice it if you have not enough RAM and if you have a really slow drive, perhaps. That combination could be problematic. But as far as like just launching apps and running them and everything, I think most people are going to have a pretty good experience. I don't think of this as something that is like big and heavy and, awful like Vista sort of was when it first came out.
Well, I was thinking about getting a 256 SSD and getting 8 gigs of RAM instead of 4 in this thing. And I'm sure it'll make, a tremendous difference considering you're doubling everything. Doubling the RAM and adding more, a faster responsive hard drive. So I think I'm going to do that with this one. This will become my Windows laptop that I could use with Windows 10. But until then, I'm going to probably wait because everything else is a production machine. And the last thing you want to do is upgrade a production machine to a new operating system on release day. So I don't want to deal with that. The God forbid something goes wrong, trying to fix it.
Right.
But again, if you have doubts, I'm looking at the chat now. People are saying they're going to install on day one. People are going to wait a couple days. If you do not feel confident, do not install it on day one. I actually recommend do not install it on day one.
No harm, no foul. I mean, wait a month. Let the entire world be your guinea pig, and see what happens. I mean, there's always problems that crop up when it goes out to millions and millions of people, many more than we ever saw in the beta. But I also think Windows is a mature product, so. They did some nice work post 8.1 to make that system work better on desktop type machines.
Yeah,
that stuff continues in Windows 10. I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about a phone, Paul. I want to talk about the 735. Did you get the 735?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you like it?
I've always liked the 735. I mean, the goofy thing about it is the first time I saw it was last August. It's a long time ago. I didn't get one in hand until probably a month or two later. And it was sold only internationally through last year. So the version I got was like an international GSM version. So it worked on AT&T, but not with LTE speeds. And if you think back to that time period, there were 2 phones that Microsoft had announced. They announced them, I think, in September. It was the 830, which has a decent camera, like not quite a 1020, 1520 class camera, but a pure view camera of some kind. I think it was 10 or 11 megapixels, which I thought was going to be maybe the big deal. And the 735, the way they advertised it initially was the selfie camera. It was like the selfie phone.
Yeah.
5 megapixel wide angle view, front facing camera. And in testing them, I really expected the 830 to be the big deal, but the more I used it, the less impressed I was by the 830's camera, which when it first shipped took kind of muddy, drab-looking photos for some reason, which they fixed later through a software update. 735, the back camera was fantastic, and if you're if you're like a it's not that long ago, but like an old school, kind of Nokia guy from early Windows Phone days. That is, so like just a few years really. It's sort of like the logical successor to the 920, which was the original or the last super popular
Yeah.
flagship that Nokia ever made. But instead of being like this big heavy brick, it was like super light. In fact, I remember when Microsoft first handed me one so I could touch it, I thought it was an empty shell, like an engineering sample. And I was like, oh, this thing's lighter than air. I'm like, what is this, like an empty box? And like, no, that's the real thing. You can turn it on. And it's kind of neat how light and thin, just not thin, but really light it is. You can peel the whole cover back off. You can get at the battery, the SD card, and the SIM card. And I kind of fell in love with it, and I used it through the remainder of last year. It's just a beautiful little phone. Now, what's happening now is here we are 10 months later.
And
Verizon was always going to have this thing. It was just a matter of time. We knew that from day one. And God, it took them a long time. It took them 8 months. But so the Verizon's selling it. So finally we have this thing in the United States. The Verizon version obviously is Verizon LTE. It supports the wireless charging stuff that's built into the back, so it works like that. It's QI based. It works with Verizon's HD calling and HD video stuff, which only works between phones that support that. You can't.
And there's no hardware changes, no hardware upgrades, no newer firmware on the hard. It's exactly the same thing.
It just supports it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know that with some phones, when Verizon got it later, or Verizon got it earlier, there were some hardware changes. It wasn't a major thing, but it was
I should say,
firmware
by the way,
changes.
maybe there was some change that facilitates that. I'm not aware of it. The processor's the same. The one hardware change I do know that's happened is the base amount of storage in the device is 16 gigs, not 8. So the original version of the 735 came with 8 gigs of internal storage. This one is 16. You can get different color covers, all of which support wireless charging. There's some Verizon-specific colors. Like you can get a red cover, which is kind of cool. And the pricing is right. And this is something Verizon has often gotten wrong. And I'm talking off the top of my head, but I think you can buy it outright for $192. And that's a tremendous price for this phone. This is a great phone. This is an excellent option. It is not a high-end phone. I get that. But it is a middle, like a mid-market phone. It's not a low-end phone. It's a nice phone. The cameras are both fantastic.
So if you are if I go in there and I buy this phone, am I going to be satisfied with it, or am I going to say, well, it's crappy because I'm coming from a higher end Android phone?
Yeah, it's not an iPhone 6. Yeah. It just isn't. It's a 720p screen. It's not a 1080p screen. Although, again, just for the upteenth time, I don't think that matters as much on Windows Phone.
Yeah.
I don't really have any huge downsides to it that I can think of. I think it's a 4.7 inch screen, so it's not not quite as big as maybe the optimal size for a screen, depending on your feelings about these things. But the one thing I always feel, or I always notice when I use this thing, is it feels really nice in your hand, which I know is kind of goofy. It's smaller than most of the phones I use, which has its own kind of advantages. You can kind of slip it into your front pocket and not even really notice that it's there. It's kind of, it's nice.
Well, it's also $400 cheaper than an iPhone.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I was shocked by how good the pictures were. It's not if you just look at the specs, you would think, how good could this thing be?
Yeah. Do you
It's
have
really
the pictures
nice.
on your website by any chance? Do you have any sample photos?
No, I mean, the problem is I reviewed this thing last year when I was at the other site, so I'm not sure what is out there. I'll do that. But I haven't. I'll review. I'll review the Verizon version.
I'm curious to see if you were to do a side by side, just snap a photo with the Verizon version and snap a photo with I guess the global version, right? I guess that's what
I don't think the camera's going to be different.
You know what? I spoke to someone about this, and I was asking, I'm like, this was common back in the day when, Verizon would get an HTC Touch Pro a year after Sprint got it, or vice versa. And I was told by someone that kind of is in the know that, yes, it's the same product, but depending on the time that it was on the line, the assembly line, they do change the internals for certain things. They may use a different capacitor. They may use, I'm just giving an example, but the camera is like let's say like the lens itself or the sensor for the camera. It may be, let's say, a Paul Thurrott 5 camera sensor, but it could be a 5.02, which is an upgraded version that gives you better image quality. So it's possible.
I've never heard anything like that. I don't know. You know, the only thing I've seen was the storage amount. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to say there. I don't know.
Like, I'll give you an example with Samsung here. They have 2 camera sensors on their phones. Some have a Sony sensor, and the other ones have, let's say, Samsung sensors. And they, depending on when you bought the phone, you got a Sony. If you bought it a little later, maybe you got a Samsung sensor. And the image quality, I mean, it's virtually the same. It's identical, really. The only way you could tell is if you go into, like, the phone, I guess, stats, and you see, you know, what it says. But they do things like that at times. So I'm just curious, because it's such a long delay. A year is a long time.
Right.
I'm just hopeful that Verizon got something special. That's all I want.
Well, I mean,
that's all I want.
I don't know.
Couple other things, guys. Google launched the undo feature.
Oh, and
which, let me tell you, I've had this for a while because it was like in beta, so you could check it in the settings. A lot of people have no idea that exists. Make sure if this is a setting, you check it, because the undo feature is a very, very helpful feature when you're sending out emails. Let's say I want to call someone a jackass, and I sent it to him by mistake. You could just undo it. It's actually a very, very helpful feature to be able to undo email. What it does, it actually puts like a 30-second delay on the way that the server sends out the email. So you have 30 seconds to hit undo. I do that all the time. I don't know if anybody else will find that useful, but I do. All right, Paul, let's wrap it up. Go to our website, gfknetwork.com. If you miss any portion of the show, of course, you can catch it archived. We are everywhere podcasts are available. Subscribe to the podcast, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast. It's a huge help. Automatically downloads it as soon as it's released. You know, we have an audio version, an HD version, an SD version. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Also, we have a new YouTube channel. We are now putting our stuff, on YouTube. We're on Dailymotion, but we have a dedicated channel just for What the Tech. Subscribe to that channel. I think you can find it on Twitter. You can find it maybe in the show. You know what, John? I'm talking to the editor now. John, in the show notes, could you please put the YouTube link in there? Thanks. That's how we do business now, Paul. I don't even talk to anybody. I just make notes on the air. I'm like, can you do this? Yeah, okay. It'll get done. Subscribe to us, guys, at wherever podcasts are available. Also, we have an Amazon link, gfq.co/Amazon. You could bookmark it, and whenever you buy something, it helps us out here at the network. I want to thank our sponsor, Casper, for supporting the show. You can follow Paul on Twitter at TheRot. You can follow me at Andrew Zarian. If you're watching live, stay tuned. What the Talk is coming up. If you're watching on demand, if you are a patron, if you fund us on Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetech, you can get access to our bonus show we record each and every week. Paul has a great segment on the show called Throwback Tuesdays, where we talk about old things from Tech Past. So people have been enjoying old things from Tech Past. I guess it is old because it's from Tech Past, so that's redundant. Things from Tech Past, so you can watch it there. Until next time, guys, take care.